The silence in the house was unbearable. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind outside felt like a ghostly reminder of what I'd lost. My family was gone, ripped from me in a senseless accident, and I was left alone in this hollow shell of a home. I couldn't sleep, the quiet was suffocating, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't escape. To distract myself, I started delving into the dark corners of the internet, looking for anything that could take my mind off the emptiness. I didn't care what I found, I just needed to feel something other than the crushing grief that consumed me. But the further I went, the darker the paths I explored became. Late at night, with only the dim glow of the monitor lighting the room, I would find myself clicking on links I knew I shouldn't. There were times when I could have sworn I heard something, a faint whisper, or the distant sound of footsteps in the hall. I told myself it was just the house settling, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I could feel it, an unsettling presence, lurking just beyond the edge of my awareness. But I kept going, driven by a need I couldn't understand, as if something was pulling me deeper into the abyss. It was as if the darkness I was exploring online had seeped into the real world, filling the empty spaces left by my family's absence. And even though a part of me was terrified, I couldn't stop. The further I went, the more I felt like I was being watched, like something was waiting for me at the end of this twisted journey. But by then, it was already too late to turn back. The discovery, it started innocently enough, a random link in a chat room, a curiosity that should have ended there. But as I clicked through, I found myself on a hidden forum, buried deep within the dark recesses of the internet. This wasn't the usual conspiracy nonsense. This was something much darker, filled with pages of rituals, occult symbols, and images that made my skin crawl. Building suspense. I knew I shouldn't have clicked, but something drew me in. Rituals, sacrifices, things that made my skin crawl. But one thread caught my eye, the ritual of the forgotten. The obsession. Each night, I would return to the forum, drawn deeper into its twisted content. I couldn't stop myself, even though every fiber of my being screamed that I should. The rituals, the symbols, they began to feel familiar, as if they were calling to me, pulling me further into the darkness. My nights were consumed by it, the lines between reality and the horrors I was reading about starting to blur. The crime, I'll never forget the day I returned home and found them, my father, my mother, my brother, brutally murdered. The scene was a nightmare etched in blood and horror. Their bodies were arranged in a ritualistic manner, a macabre display of violence and depravity. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling were smeared with blood. In the center of the living room, among the shattered remains of what used to be my family, was a symbol, an unholy mark that sent a chill through my spine. It was the same symbol I had seen on the forum, the one described in the Ritual of the Forgotten. First-person perspective. I found them, my father, my mother, my brother, slaughtered, their bodies mutilated in ways I couldn't comprehend. And then I saw the symbol, the same one from the forum. My mind couldn't process the horror of it. It was as if the ritual had come to life in my own home. The investigation. I watched as the police scoured the house, their faces a mix of confusion and revulsion. They found no leads, no fingerprints, no evidence. It was as though the murders had been carried out by a ghost. The case quickly turned cold, buried under a layer of unanswered questions in the dark cloud of an unspeakable ritual. The more I thought about it, the more I felt the weight of the dark web's influence pressing down on me, as if the horrors I had read about had seeped into my reality. The haunting. After the gruesome discovery of my family, my nights were plagued by terror. I was haunted by vivid hallucinations, their faces twisted in agony. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, the echoes of their screams still reverberating through my ears. Shadows danced on the walls, mocking the cruel reality I couldn't escape. Every corner of the house seemed to harbor their tormented souls, and the silence was broken only by the whispers of what had been done. The connection. The more I tried to erase the horrors from my mind, the stronger the visions became. It wasn't just the nightmares, it was the feeling of something sinister pressing against my consciousness, as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart. I realized with growing dread that the rituals I'd been reading about were not mere stories or fantasies. They were real, and I had inadvertently summoned something dark and malevolent into my life. First-person perspective, the more I tried to forget, the stronger the visions became. It was as if the rituals had awakened something inside me, something that wanted more. I could feel its presence, a cold, malevolent force that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. The boundary between my nightmares and reality had dissolved, leaving me trapped in a waking nightmare where the terror was very real and very much alive. The endless nightmare, as days turned into nights and nights into weeks, the torment became unbearable. I discovered the horrifying truth hidden within the deep web forums. The ritual I had stumbled upon was not just a dark ceremony, it was a curse, designed to possess the soul of the one who performed it. It was meant to drive its victim to madness, compelling them to commit unspeakable acts, to become the monster they feared. The more I learned, the clearer it became that I was no longer the person I once was. The final act, I felt it taking over me, a darkness creeping into my soul, suffocating every shred of humanity left within me. The urge to complete the ritual grew stronger each day, an overwhelming compulsion to taste the flesh of the innocent, to replicate the horrors that had consumed my family. I was losing control, my thoughts spiraling into chaos, and the line between my will and the entity's desire was blurring beyond recognition. Final chilling note, the case was never solved, but I know the truth now. I am the monster they were searching for. I can feel the darkness gnawing at me, and I know it's only a matter of time before I act on these urges. The ritual must be completed over and over again. And when my time comes, someone else will take my place in this horrific cycle. The nightmares won't end, they will only evolve, passing from one soul to the next. And I, too, will become part of the horror I once feared.